which the board has authority. Speakers have up to 4 minutes or the time limit determined by the presiding officer. Each speaker must complete the speaker's form that includes the topics to be presented. You may also email mcox@trophyclub.org or tap him on the shoulder because he sits right there. Is anyone wishing to speak during the citizens presentation portion of the agenda? Thank you, sir. So I've got 3 folks signed up. Now, I will say, before you all speak, if you wish to speak on the item on the agenda that we have the public hearing for, which is the rezoning case, you'll also have an opportunity, multiple opportunities to speak during that case, and we will have the opportunity to actually dialogue with you. If you choose to speak at this time, we will not. So does anyone wish to speak regarding an item not on the agenda at this point? It doesn't look that way, so we'll move on to our regular session items. Our first item is going to be case PD-21-003, the Trophy Townhomes located at 401 Trophywood Drive. This is an item with a public hearing portion and an action item portion. The public hearing portion, we will we'll hear from the applicant and staff and also the public, and then we'll close the public hearing. And then the second portion, the action item, is when the board will discuss and deliberate, and we'll also have the opportunity to interact with the applicant, staff, and anyone in the public who wishes to speak during that portion of the item. So it is 7:03. The public hearing is open. Conducting a public hearing regarding a request to rezone and establish a planned development for up to 7 townhome lots along with 1 open space lot and 1 common private street lot on property described as Lot 3R2, Block A, Trophywood Business Center, in addition to the Town of Trophy Club, located at 401 Trophywood Drive in the Town of Trophy Club, Tarrant County, Texas, currently zoned PD25 planned development. Now, this is the public hearing portion, but to hopefully help the public along with the context of your comments, I'm going to ask staff to start. So, Matt or David, if one of you guys could please come to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item will also be followed by a preliminary plat that corresponds to the rezoning, so we can basically look at them together, but they'll be separate action items.
I think what I'd prefer to do on that, Matt, since one is subsequent to the other, is I mean, the plat will be shown as a part of the presentation.
Correct,
So
yeah.
That, I guess it's already in there, so we'll just open the second item after we close the first.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So this is a little under an acre that's addressed as a 401 Trophywood Drive, so it's just north of the Hampton Inn and just west of where we're standing right now. It is zoned PD25. That's a kind of mixed commercial PD that was created in the early 2000s. So this piece is a remnant of the property that was eventually developed as the Hampton Inn. The zoning would also allow for hotel, office, restaurant uses on this site as well. But the proposal before you tonight would replace that PD with a new PD for 7 townhome lots. So the preliminary plat is shown on the screen. It's also functioning as the concept plan for the PD, so that's why we're kind of presenting them together. The site is a little bit under an acre. It does include, in addition to the 7 townhome lots, 2 common lots. One would be open space, kind of a buffer area, and then the other would be a private street that would be maintained by the HOA. So we've got the dimensional standards on the screen. Minimum lot size would be 2550. So that'd be a minimum width of 30 feet, minimum depth of 85 feet, but the overall lot size would be 2550. Minimum average for the 7 lots is 3,000. Minimum floor area of the townhome is 2,500 square feet. These are shown as 2-story townhomes with a rooftop patio. I'll show some renderings in a second. Minimum front setback is 17 feet. Front porch can encroach up to 5 feet into that. Minimum garage setback is another 5 feet back, 22 feet. As I said, the maximum height there, it was actually 2 stories with the rooftop patio. The maximum lot coverage is 80%. Similar to the residential rezonings that have been shown recently. The applicant is going with kind of a menu approach to design features, so written into the PD as a requirement for every unit to have at least 3 of the features that are listed on the screen. These are pretty typical architectural features for this class of resident. I'll let the applicant go into a little bit more detail as to the specific finishes and architectural style, but those renderings were provided by the applicant to show what the proposed townhomes would look like. So in conducting the analysis of the site, staff took into account the age of the existing PD was created about 20 years ago. As for commercial uses, it wouldn't allow this type of use. As I mentioned before, the original site that these are proposed on was initially quite a bit bigger, but it was, eventually part of it was used to develop the Hampton Inn. So it's sat vacant in its current state for about 13 years now. On the whole, staff recognizes that some of the commercial viability of this site has been impacted by that subsequent development. So given the fact that the current zoning does allow for buildings of 3 or 4 stories in height, uses that include hotel, restaurant, can be fairly high impact to the neighborhood surrounding it. On the whole, staff believes that this is a good use for the site. 2-story townhomes with a rooftop patio, 7 units, have a less impact on the surrounding property. So staff is recommending approval of the rezone. We do know that there has been some resident correspondence, some of which is in opposition to this item, but would be happy to entertain any questions right now.
Okay, since we have David here, guys, if y'all have any questions for him, I'd also kind of like to hear from the applicant before I go into too many questions, but if you guys have anything, by all means, go for it now. Go ahead, Bob.
What uses did you say were allowable in it as it's currently zoned?
There's several commercial uses, but they range from hotel, office, retail, restaurant, pretty general commercial uses.
And how tall could they be?
The maximum building height is 4 stories.
Thank you.
Anything else for David? You did mention on the table in one of the previous slides that it listed the maximum height as 3 stories or 42 feet, but you basically what you were saying is that it's 2 stories
With a
2
rooftop
stories
patio.
inside, so it's the height of a 3-story building, but the top is a patio. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Yeah, I have a few notes, but I think I'd like to hear a presentation from the applicant if they're ready.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. Hi, good evening. My name is Amr Elbarai. I am the applicant.
Thanks. Also, please state your address for the record.
My address is 9 Lake Circle in Trophy Club. I am the applicant. So to clarify one thing, it's not the height of a 3-story building. We're just, what we wrote was 42 feet, up to 42 feet, but the proposed, and this is very close to what we want to build, it's 2 stories with a rooftop patio, so we wouldn't reach 42 at all. It's 2 stories, assuming 10-foot plates plus a 2-foot in between, and then so I'm actually glad that we put this up on the screen because I know some of the concern is the line of sight. And what we're looking at here, it's hard to tell. I don't know if there's a way. Can we zoom this in a little bit, please? That's okay. It's fine. What we did here, because this land could be a 4-story hotel, it could be a restaurant, a nail salon, hair salon, a lot of retail uses, which would impact this. Now, I don't own this land. I am developing for the landowner. The landowner is traveling, he's not here, so the landowner has had this land for a few years, not sure what to do with it, and he was looking at various commercial uses, but because we focus primarily on residential, I proposed let's do residential townhomes. It wouldn't impact the neighborhood nearly as much as any of the permitted uses. And the way we did it is we pushed the townhomes all the way towards the Hampton Inn and created a buffer zone between the townhomes and the existing residences. Also, the rooftop deck would have no line of sight to the residences because there's a 4-foot parapet wall that hides the HVAC equipment. So you would not be able to see the HVAC equipment from the floor. And whoever's standing on the rooftop deck would not be able to see into the existing residence. Now, this area, we didn't create the rooftop deck for views. It's just for outdoor living space because the backyards are limited. As David said, there's the current permitted use, I think would have a much greater impact on the neighborhood with regards to density, traffic, noise, light pollution, ingress, egress, safety, nighttime, empty parking lots, whereas this, we're pretty much creating 7 residences. Currently, I don't know if we have, let's see here. Yeah, the houses that are currently there to the north of the property on Jamie Court. So the south side of Jamie Court, there are 7 homes, number 16 to number 22 Jamie Court. The density of those 7 homes is about the density of what we're doing. So we're not doing 20 townhomes or 15. It's very minimal impact. The owner of the land is a gentleman who owns a company that imports high-end marbles, tiles, things of that nature. So we would like to feature some of these products on these townhomes. All we do is contemporary, so these are going to be very contemporary, very high-end. Price points for these townhomes, we're looking somewhere between $800,000 to $1 million per unit, which is going to help the existing neighbors, not hurt in any way. So again, this is something that I feel very confident that we can execute. We're building townhomes now in Roanoke. We're doing a whole new subdivision in downtown Roanoke, and this will be my first development in Trophy Club, with the hope that we continue developing here. Again, David covered most of the points with regards to impact and with regards to permitted uses, and I would love to have the opportunity to answer questions from the residences or from you gentlemen.
Thanks. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner?
I have one to start with. 800 to $1 million, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you do some broad study in this area for that to come up with those numbers?
Absolutely. We have the townhomes that this page is the sales of the units that were right along the highway built by Beck Construction. And their sales price were hovering around around $200 per square foot prior to, if you look at the closing dates, this was all prior to the real estate spike and the changes. Our townhomes in Roanoke are selling at $325 a foot. So we're selling townhomes that are about 1,900 square feet for $600,000. I feel very comfortable that between 800 to $1 million for 2,500 to 3,500 square foot townhomes, that's where we're at today. We can't build them for under $200, $220 a foot. We can't. So, and it's not just us, it's everybody across the board. So, and building is continuing. So this is where the market's going. I don't have, I can't build at $150 anymore. It's not doable. So somewhere between $250 to $260 a foot yields us the prices between $800 to $1 million for these townhomes. And there's 7. So these are not going to be units that are leased cheap, where you're going to have a lot of transient residents. These are units that are going to be owned by people. Also, the demographics here, you have people that are downsizing that don't necessarily want to leave Trophy Club. My father lives in South Lake, and he can't downsize because there's no smaller homes available. And so basically we're trying to create something that caters to the market, to the population that's trying to downsize but can't find anything to downsize into.
have two
Paul, thank you.
questions.
Or go ahead, both of you guys.
Sorry.
Yes.
So you mentioned that we're going to get to 2 stories with the 4-foot parapet wall.
Yes.
And with assurances that if there is some rooftop dwelling, the line of sight would not, I saw the diagram there, where would that put us at? 22, 23 feet, 25 feet, 26 feet? What was that dimension there?
The height,
If I'm standing on the deck.
if you're standing on the deck, you're somewhere between 22 and 24 feet.
Okay, and I'm 6'1", so if I'm standing on that deck,
So this figure is 1 inch shorter than you. So we have a
Okay.
6-foot figure on the, I wish I could blow it up a little bit more, but you're standing on the deck,
Yeah.
your feet are at 22 to 24 feet.
yeah, so from a privacy standpoint, the theoretical person there, they'd almost have to peer over the parapet wall to see down. into
No,
the
no,
back.
actually, it's even better than that. What we're doing, it's hard to visualize, but I really need to blow it up if we could. Yeah, that's a little bit better.
It's gonna be blurry then.
That's okay if it's blurry, I just want to show. Okay, so if you look at this diagram.
Just show your pointer.
Yeah, this is actually a good idea. So if you look at this area here, Adrian, is that 25 feet? Okay, so this is the parapet wall front here. And we were reserving 25 feet for the air conditioning and the mechanical
I see.
equipment.
Okay,
That's screened, you can't see that. So if the farthest I can walk forward is 25 feet
oh, I
from
see.
the edge.
Because you'd have the HVAC equipment.
Exactly.
Right there
So-
where that-
So you have a parapet wall here. Also, when I'm creating a rooftop patio, I don't want to look at the HVAC equipment either for the residents. So I'm keeping the HVAC equipment separate between
Okay.
2 fences. So the furthest I can get to is 25 feet from the edge. So I have 0 line of sight. I have none, because this dotted line represents my straight line of sight. It hits the parapet wall before I can actually see. So I can't look down at the neighbors. I can look the other way, but I
Right.
can't look down at the neighbors.
You'd be looking at HG Supply and all
I
that.
could be-
You look
I
at the
could be
Hampton
looking-
and all the other
Right.
stuff.
So, yeah, to the west, we have Westlake, we have the new Entrada area, and to the east, you have South Lake. And so you have 2 views that way, but I don't think we want to look at the back of the Hampton either, but that's there. That's not something you can change. Also, this building, where we are, is going to reduce highway noise, because now you have a building where an empty lot was. So highway noise from 114, this building is going to absorb some of that noise. And it's also going to restrict some of the line of sight from the rooms at the Hampton. So currently, I can be sitting in a room on the 2nd floor at the Hampton, looking in the backyards of the neighbors.
One
You
other
can't
que-
do that now.
One other question, so the units, the parking would not be on-street, they would all be in the garages, which would be
Yes,
on the first,
yes.
theoretically, the first. Where do those, are they on the cul-de-sac that we'd be making, or are those entrances on the paving that already exists right behind the Hampton? There's paving there, there's parking paving already there.
No. It would not, the entrance would not be from the Hampton at
It
all.
would be on the cul-de-sac that we would be.
Yeah, the entrance would not come from the Hampton. That
Okay.
is a separate entrance that stays by itself.
Okay.
The entrance,
see.
we are here. The parking is in the front on this Street A that we're creating.
Street A, okay.
And each townhome has at least a 22-foot deep driveway. So that you can park 2 vehicles in the driveway, or neighbors can park in the driveway. Also, you can park on the street, but this is a private street. It doesn't have access to anybody else.
Perfect. That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have a question?
I have a number of them, yes.
All right.
Who is the owner, the landowner?
The owner's name is Harry Polavarapu. He is just, he's a gentleman who used to own data centers, sold out of his data centers. His family is in India. They are in the natural stone and granite business. That's what he's in now. So he has about a 50,000 square foot facility in Carrollton, and he imports, he's a distributor. He's a wholesaler of granite, quartz, marble, this and that. He lives in South Lake, and he's had this land for a while. Originally, he wanted to put a 15,000 square foot office for his company on this land, but yes, we can do retail, but you can't do 15,000 square foot retail. It'd be too much because of the setbacks and the restrictions. So he's just a resident. He's not a developer, just a resident.
And I have a question about the outdoor lighting.
Yes.
I'm assuming that the street and the cul-de-sac, there will be streetlights?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned the fact that there's no light pollution, so I'm assuming that these are fully shielded streetlights and
They will be down-
focusing the light down.
Yes, down shooting, and we would just do a minimal, maybe one light for the whole street because the street's so small.
Yeah.
We
that was
don't need to
thinking.
light the whole street. So it depending on what the city requires when we start putting this together, if I could opt to have no lights, I don't really need lights on the street because it's not a public street, it's a private street. So it doesn't necessarily need lighting. Maybe Matt might be able to answer that a little bit better as far as the minimum number of lights, but our goal is to not have several light poles in essentially the backyards of the existing neighbors. We don't want that.
And the other issue that I've been thinking about is the fact that you're going to have 4 access streets to Trophywood Boulevard within a short distance. I'm thinking maybe they're probably about 150 feet apart or something like that. And the typical street, like along Indian Creek or other thoroughfare, the distance between streets is about 300. And what I'm wondering about is the traffic situation there. How are we going to handle the egress and ingress that you mentioned when we're coming in from the frontage road? I'm assuming that a U-turn has to be made at Jamie Court to enter this one.
A U-turn has to be made regardless of what we do with this property. So currently, if I'm here, coming in from the frontage road, I have to make a U-turn here at Jamie Court to come back, unless I want to enter through the Hampton. And even if you do a retail or any other use, the Hampton itself is not the best place to enter. We're going to need to create an entrance into that property one way or another. I would love to say we can. Now the other option is, if we didn't do this, we would put the street on the south side. Or if I entered through the Hampton, then we would have the townhomes sitting in the backyards of the existing neighbors. And that's why I created it this way, to create a buffer and a street. So with the combination of the front yard of the townhomes, the width of the street, and the buffer, you are far away from the neighbors' backyards. If we flipped it and entered from the Hampton, which there currently is an access right here, it was a shared access. So assuming we use this access, now I got to put these townhomes over here in the neighbors' yards. And that's what we don't want. So given it's only 7 townhomes, I think the impact on traffic is going to be fairly minimal. It's 7. And it's residents who are leaving their house maybe 2-3 times a day versus an office or retail where you have traffic coming in and out all the time, all day and all weekend. And so this is kind of, to me, it's the lesser of 2 evils.
Was consideration given to opening the median at that?
We haven't even discussed that. We didn't get far enough into, that would be a discussion with the city if a median would be open, something I'm open to, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet, or level of infrastructure changes yet.
That does it for me.
Perfect.
All right, thanks, Paul. Coming off of that, that was actually one of the notes I had made as well, was I wanted to hear from staff about the possibility of creating a left turn there or some way to open the median, because of you're going to have U-turns going both ways if you don't do something. And I thought it was pretty interesting that Amr mentioned that there was 7 homes. When I first moved into Trophy Club a million years ago in 2004, I lived on Shasta Drive, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 homes. But it is right off Trophy Lake Drive. Trophy Lake Drive, and it's maybe 100 feet, and then there's Shasta.
Yeah.
And you used to be able to pop a U-turn there and go into Shasta, which I was a 24-year-old male, so I did that all the time, and that's not the safest traffic pattern. And within a year of moving there, a no U-turn sign went up. Bill Rose is nodding his head. I'm sure he remembers because his memory is like a steel trap. So obviously, fewer U-turns is good for public safety.
Right.
So my thinking, I don't know how the commission feels, but my thinking is some assurance, or at least some understanding of whether or not that's possible, would go a long way. I'll let these guys talk about that. You said you're open
I
to
have
it,
a
so.
suggestion also. So I live on Lake Circle, which is off of Trophy Lake, where the Tom Thumb is. I can no longer I can't make a U-turn there, across from Tom Thumb. Now it's a U-turn is prohibited. You have to go to the roundabout and come back.
Right.
I think that, I see that eventually happening. So the neighbors living on Jamie will be able to turn left into Jamie, but I think it's gonna be very difficult for people to continue making U-turns. So
Yeah.
either we cut that median and create a left turn, or you eliminate U-turns
Yeah,
on
and-
Jamie.
In terms of traffic flow in general, obviously, we
Yeah.
prefer to not encourage U-turns. Just a few general questions for you. You said you guys focus mainly on residential projects, and you mentioned the one in Roanoke. So how far along is the one in Roanoke right now? What stage is it in?
The one in Roanoke is in planning and design right now, so it's on Morningside in the downtown Roanoke area. And we're building just 4 or 5 units there. That's under an SUP, and then we also have 8 houses on Pecan in downtown Roanoke as well. Those are single family, and we're in a replatting now. But then we do custom homes and things of that nature, and that's
So
what
you're
we're
just a
focused on.
couple steps ahead of where you're at with this right now?
Yes.
basically. What are any others that you can name that are completed or in construction that we might know about?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't know about it. We do custom homes for folks. We have 2 houses in South Lake currently, with one in Parker, one in Little Elm on Lake Louisville, and that's what we have for custom at this point. And then obviously we're continuing our development efforts. But the biggest chunk is going to be the 8 single-family homes in Roanoke, which is going right now through replatting. Is basically we bought 2 large lots, 3.5 acres, and we changed it to 8 lots that are all conforming and everything. But we had to do a drainage study. This one, we've already done the drainage. The good thing is this is not going to create any additional runoff because you have sewer where the Hampton is already and runoff towards the Hampton. So that was already factored in when the Hampton did their development. They had to kind of mitigate for future development here. So that's a good thing.
So the Roanoke projects and this project are your, if I'm hearing correctly, are your first ones that you've done a multi-unit development
No,
of residential?
in residential, but I did a 60,000 square foot industrial in South Lake in 2014.
Okay.
So, and that's where my office is right now.
Okay.
So we've done developments, actual residential, single-family land development in South Lake as well, right just to the south of Eubanks and Dawson Middle School and Intermediate School, called Kimball Circle Estates. So
Okay.
we've done a few.
Okay, cool. Okay.
But for townhomes, specifically for townhomes, these 2 we're going into that now simply because the market is where it is today. It's the need for the townhomes. Whereas this is something I wouldn't have looked at years ago.
Right. This is probably the first PD I can remember seeing that didn't have a concept site plan. Is there any reason why you guys didn't draw one up? I mean, I understand the plat tells us a lot, but typically in situations like this, the PD will also include a concept site plan that gives us basically a renderingized version of the plat. You know, it gives you an overhead view of what you're going to be looking at in terms of green space, landscaping, where the units are going to sit relative to the trees, where the units are going to sit relative to the street, sidewalks, things of that nature. Do you have that? Is that something you could potentially produce for us, just so that?
Well, this
because
is it.
one day we're going to have a bunch of PD documents in Trophy Club that are all active zoning, and it'd be cool if they're all as close to the same as possible.
What you're looking at here is these are just screenshots of the CAD file. So we can orient this file in any orientation, top view, angles, 15 different sites. So we do have it set up. We just, for this presentation, we just took a few screenshots of
Okay.
it.
I think it would be helpful, depending on how things continue tonight, if something like that gets added into the PD document in the form of a document prepared by an engineering firm, because generally they have that included, and I think in the interest of completeness, it might be good to have.
Absolutely. That's simple.
Let's see, so where are we at on sidewalks with this? Because the renderings don't show sidewalks in front of the homes. They obviously show them along Trophy Wood because they're already there. And there is a portion of the PD in page 11 that says that anything not listed here falls back to town regulations. And since there's nothing in the PD that mentions sidewalks, I'm wondering if they're implied due to that and they're just not in the rendering. What are your thoughts there?
He said the sidewalks are here. They're just in front of the residents, the 7 residents, but it doesn't continue all the way to the street. So you have sidewalks along Trophy Wood, and then you have walkway in front of each resident going across from one to the other. It's just, maybe it's not in the PD, but it's implied here.
House's driveway as well.
Driveway,
2/3
yeah.
of each lot is going to be driveway.
Right. I mean, because you have, the sidewalks are literally like 5 feet sections.
yeah.
Because the
So-
driveway takes up the majority of the front of the
Of
home.
course.
So there's not a whole lot of sidewalk. It's literally just a walkway from one neighbor to the next.
Yeah, it's minimal. It's something that I would advise adding to the PD with a specification in terms of the width
Okay.
and where it would,
No problem.
things of that nature.
Sure.
The more of this we do, the quicker it might be at council. If it's just, you never know, right? Let's see, what other things did I have? The comment about potentially shielding street lights is another thing that could be addressed in the PD in the event you have to do that. It'd be smart to codify that in the PD, I think. What is your intent? Because I don't recall, and I might have missed it in the PD, but is there any intention to allow people to add any improvements to the rooftops, like a pergola or some kind of cover awning, something like that?
I mean, that's not in the plans. Again, that's why we have the 42-foot height in case someone wants to add that pergola, we can add it. I suspect that some of the neighbors or some of the residents would like some sort of covered porch or covered patio. And that's something we didn't design into our plans, but it's certainly something that can be added. But it would be a pergola. It would not be a building structure.
Sure, yeah, that might be another thing that might be good to detail in there to provide some upper limitation in terms of how big it can be or what the coverage could be, like percentage of the rooftop or something like that.
Fair
It's
enough.
another question that I could see potentially anticipated there. Let's see if I had any other thing. I have some other thoughts, but they're kind of more in response to some of the public comments that we've already heard. So since we obviously want to let the folks here make some comments, I'll save those for later. So commissioners, do you guys have anything else for Mr. Elbarai or for staff right now? Okay, well, we are still in the public hearing, so thanks. Amr, you can have a seat if you'd
Thank you
like.
so much.
I'm going to go through our list here. Anyone else, once I get through these, feel free, just raise your hand or fill out a form there in the back. We'll start with Sean Perkins. If you could come up to the front.
Actually, sir, I'd like to go last place. if it's okay with
I'm happy to grant that to you. It doesn't matter to me. I went last the other night. It's kind of fun. Okay, I get it. Been there. Let's see, David Durr. If you could, please, for the record, state your name and address.
David Dre on 7
Dre.
Jamie Court.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Hey, so I really, you come in and you think, I'm against it, because we're against change, right? I don't know if I'm for or against it, based on what I'm hearing, because I didn't hear a presentation. I heard maybe, sort of. That's almost like it's going to look like. I didn't hear anything about privacy trees for the residents. I see a street 10 feet, 2 feet from my across the street neighbor that probably doesn't want that there. I didn't hear any way to address lighting. I didn't hear any way to address the traffic control. You guys did. Yeah, you guys did a great job. But I don't feel like this presentation was even worth saying I'm for or against the project, personally. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeRay. Next, Bill Rose, 29, all right, I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying your address. You can say it yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Please state your name and address.
Bill Rose, 219 Inverness. It's like it always comes after the name. I did just a little bit of research typically. Let me say at the beginning that conceptually I support townhomes on this property. I think it's probably a good use of the property. As far as the depth of the presentation on the HOA, I went back to ordinance 1995-21, which was done for PD 14, which is the villas, the adjacent property on North. So as I said, and that might be something that the developer might want to look at for working through the HOA part of the equation, as well as things that go in a PD development. As I said, I support townhomes, but it's with some modifications. First, we've talked about 2 stories here, the developer has. The PD allows for 3. I'd like to see a clear limitation on a 2-story max. I also think that 6 townhomes is the correct number in this area as opposed to 7, and I'll get into that just a bit. Next thing is design, style, and materials, I believe, should match what's in the villas, the 2 neighboring communities, one up the hill and across the street. What that means is that, and I took this from the PD, the exterior surface on all main and accessory buildings shall be constructed of glass, stone, or brick. The exterior wall of each such building shall have not less than 80% masonry coverage, which shall be brick, stone, or a combination of brick and stone. Garage doors, all garage doors shall be single bay width and constructed of wood panel face material with a painted or stained surface that complements the color of the principal structure. And then I would also, on the fencing facing Trophywood Drive, I think that should match the adjoining property and just continue on down the street. We don't need something in there that looks different. It's a small area, and I think that would stick out like a sore thumb, personally. And I drive that street on a regular basis. And what they call for in the PD 14 was fencing on Trophywood to be 8-foot height and constructed of an engineered Austin stone. And I personally would follow the exact same design scale on that. I would use varying setbacks on the garage faces, maybe a minimum of 3 foot. Also, while we're on this particular diagram, in my other life, I may not speak for the MUD as a whole, but I would like to speak to the particular diagram that's up. I don't know if we can blow it up anymore. If you can, if I could just get this straight section would be good, just from there to there. There we go, that's almost there. If we get that centered, that's good. Okay, so if you look at this street section A, you will see a parallel line entering, a dash parallel set of lines entering across, going through Street A. The MUD has a 12-inch water line in there. And we are in the process right now. The project has started. We're going to add a 16-inch water line in that same easement. Now, I'm sure from talking with my staff, the developer hasn't gotten that far. But generally speaking, we don't overlay concrete over our water and sewer lines. That gives 2 options, one of which is move the current line and move the 16-inch line, because we haven't put the 16-inch line in to begin with, or 2, come up with an agreement which states that should the MUD have to come back at some point in the future, and dig those lines out. The cost of that concrete and that street repair stays with, in this case, not the developer, but it then goes to the homeowners in the area. It also, when you look at this particular diagram and the way it's laid out, should the mud have to go back in there, or the town, if it succeeds the mud, have to go back in there and tear that line out, it pretty well destroys, if you had that all torn up, it would pretty well limit the access into that area. So just the thought process, it might be a good idea to move those lines at this point. And that's only a thought. The other thing is that easement on Lot 7, that 15-foot easement widens into a 25-foot drainage and utility easement and really limits the development in Lot 7. So just as a random person out there on the street looking at this, I'd be looking at widening my lots, each individual lot, and maybe absorbing the parts of Lot 7 that were going to be good. The developer can speak to that, but I don't have any, there's no diagrams that show how the things would play out. That's all I have. Oh, one more thing. I didn't notice it in the PD document. I would strongly recommend that due to location that this be a gated community, as the villas are also gated. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I didn't pull them up. I didn't use them. Did you fellas still have those pictures available?
We passed them out.
Okay.
We've got 'em.
Well, I was going to put them up so that everyone
yeah,
could
sure.
see them. Matt took them. Did you have them on the computer so we can display them on the board? No way, okay. Just long story short, basically I provided some pictures. The pictures are of the houses in the villas, and then a couple of pictures of the, of other townhomes. My objection in this particular instance is I think that modern style does not fit in the neighborhood at all and compared to what's around it. And so I would strongly request that the board move the developer towards something that is more aligned to what's in the neighborhood, adjacent neighborhoods.
Okay, I think Mr. Biggs had a
One
question for
question.
you.
Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier recommending six lots instead of 7 because of the utility easement issues down on Lot 7.
That and it, as you move, as I looked at it, just sitting in, at the desk, as I looked at it, if I'm looking at somebody saying I need 3 stories to get my 2,500 square foot, if I say I'm capping you at 2, well then I've lost a good section of my building because the garage is down on the first floor. So based on that, I was looking at broadening the buildings out, making them wider
The square footage.
to get the square footage that the developer's looking for. So
And one question I had for you was, earlier was, is it going to be gated? It's a private street, I understand the concept there, but is it going to be gated?
That's up to the city. We can gate it or not. I have learned that a lot of neighbors don't like gated communities. So for me, it's really, it doesn't matter to me one way or another. To answer your question about the 3 stories.
Oh, Amr, could you come to the mic just so we make sure we get you fully recorded?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So as far as, just want to address one thing, just to be very clear, so I don't want to mislead or lie. We do contemporary. Now, we can match the contemporary materials, colors, textures to the existing homes, but I'm not going to be able to promise anyone that I'm going to build something that looks like it was built as part of the villas. That's because those were built years ago. What we're building is today, but we can match the colors, textures of the materials so they don't stand out. So we're not looking at pure white townhomes in the middle of brownstone structures. I understand that and I agree with that wholeheartedly, I do. As far as the fence along Trophywood, I think it's a great idea to make the fence look exactly like what's already out there. I know the PD says the fence would match the materials on the townhomes, but I have no problem restating it to say we continue the fence that's existing on Trophywood to keep some congruency. As far as the 2,500 square foot, there is no need to delete unit number 7 because our calculations, our floor plans, which we've already done, 2,500 square feet is with 2 stories. We don't need 3 stories to get to 2,500 square feet. So it's, the smallest one is actually lot 7 all the way on the inside, and we can hit 2,500 square foot on that house. The ones towards the front are approaching 4,000 square feet if we maximize it. So I just wanted to address those. Those are all perfect points. As far as moving the line, I would prefer to move the line, the existing 12-inch line now, from under the street as part of our development effort, because we're going to have to do it anyway, then come back and load it onto the homeowners should the mud need, because that's not something I want to do to the homeowners. I would rather just move it now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next up, we have Jennifer Olson.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Olson, 340 Inverness Drive. I wasn't expecting to speak, so I kind of have some notes, so if you'll just kind of like work with me while I make my notes. One of the things I want to mention is the only trees in Trophy Club are actually on the east side, which is the like older side. And I'm just kind of wondering why we're so willing to allow a developer to demolish all the trees that we have. There are trees behind the building we're in right now. That is behind Hannah Street, which is similar to Jamie Street, and they have a whole buffer, and I'm assuming the city bought those so they'd have that buffer. So I'm concerned about why Jamie Street across the street would be built out right up to their property between a hospital, or not a hospital, but a hotel and the residents, when they thought it was actually going to be a commercial property. It's only an acre of land, so I think it's pretty greedy to try to put 7 townhomes in such a small space. So that's my one point. I do agree with Bill Rose when he talked about the materials should match the villas. I think that what's been proposed is way out of bounds with what Trophy Club has to offer. There's nothing like that that even looks like that. So if you have a hotel and then you've got the villas, you've got the police station and where we are right now, and then you've got this modern building, I think it's going to stick out and it's going to look very odd. It's going to look like the city was very greedy and wanted the tax money for it. Let's see, what else do I have? Also, the applicant had mentioned that he has a project in Roanoke for 8 units for 3.5 acres. So that's a current project in Roanoke, but however, this one is 7 units in less than 1 acre. So I'm kind of concerned about how dense this space has been built out, unless I heard wrong on that. Did I hear wrong on that, or is that correct? I heard wrong. What was that? Oh, okay.
That was the one on Pecan,
Oh, okay.
I believe you said Pecan Street.
The ones on
Okay.
Morningside,
Yeah.
it's 5 units on half an acre. It's much denser than that.
Okay. All right. Because like that sounded like a whole different type of project that didn't sound. Okay. So thank you
The 8
for
units that's on Pecan. Those are single-family
dwellings, not like, okay. Yeah. So
just
that
to-
makes,
Just to make sure we get that on the recording, he said the townhome development was 5 units on about half an acre.
okay.
So
That makes more sense. Okay. Because I was like, that sounds like
that'd
it's
be a
not
pretty
really.
big townhome.
Well,
too,
that's what I was
also,
like,
wouldn't
well,
it?
that doesn't sound quite the same.
It's like a TV show where they show the little townhome and then they have like
Yeah.
10 rooms in there.
Yeah, it sounded off. The other thing I was going to mention is, I've seen some of these really cool townhomes where they've got 2 stories and they've got a rooftop. We actually have a home in Austin, and I would love to have one of these rooftops where you've got the 3rd story with a rooftop, because you've got a really awesome view. I can't imagine in Trophy Club having a really awesome view of the Hampton Inn, because you've got the Hampton Inn, and then you've got the water tower, and then you've got all the power lines, and then you've got the other side of Trophy Club. So I don't really understand what the view is and what this 3rd view is going to entail, but because I live in the area and I see it all the time, I can't imagine what it is. We do get some bats every once in a while, so maybe that's it. But I don't see why you would even have this design, because we don't have a really great area for a view. If the Hampton Inn wasn't there, then yeah, I can see you'd have a pretty view, but the The rooftop concept does not make sense to me whatsoever. I understand that maybe it's a small, less than an acre unit. And why, I don't understand why we can't attract a commercial business. We just had a coffee business that did not work out, and now we've got a wine club that they're kind of working on with Leela's. Why can't we have a coffee shop there? It seems like the ideal business that would be there. Maybe this developer and this owner of the business needs to start looking at maybe a different type of industry. But a coffee business, I think, would work really well there, and it wouldn't encroach on the Jamie neighbors, because if I was one of those residents there in that gated community, I would be really upset about the even thought about having 7 townhomes, 3 stories up, looking down in their backyards. This is going to be this is going to be awful. I live in this area. It's going to be horrible. I'm not in the gated community, but this is going to be horrible. And then also, I'm like, how much is Trophy Club bringing per acre? This is less than an acre, and this developer is wanting to bring in, what, $7 million because these 7 million townhomes? 7 townhomes, $1 million each. So this is all greed. This is all money. He says he lives in Trophy Club, but he doesn't live in this area. And to me, it just seems like it's very greedy to try to shove in all these homes in this little tiny area that is going to negatively impact the people that have already been living there. And then also, Bill Rose had talked about the current water pressure, and that was another question I had. I don't know a lot about water, but I would think that having 7 townhomes with probably 2.5 people living in each townhome is going to add a lot of pressure onto our mud. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. And Sean Perkins?
Thank you, council, for opportunity.
State your name and address for the record.
Sean Perkins, 9 Jamie Court, which we've talked about the villas a lot. That would be the villas. I'm not speaking for the villas, although I am the president of the Villas of Trophy Club, but I am no way speaking for the Villas of Trophy Club. I'm speaking as 9 Jamie Court. So I have a lot of questions. I guess I only got 4 minutes, right?
No, you have as long as you remain relevant, on topic,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
reasonable when I'm the chairman. That's
Very-
how we do
very-
things.
Very reasonable. My biggest question, and I felt this call all day long, the lack of posting and public transparency to this meeting tonight. There was no posting, there was no signage. Typically, when you change usage from one thing to another, there's posting. And there's a lot of posting, and there's been none. And talking to my personal attorney today, that's required. And my question to the board was, why was there not?
So before we move forward with that, can staff confirm if a sign was placed on the subject property?
State law doesn't require a sign to
It doesn't
be
require it.
placed. It does require notices to be sent to all property owners within
Mm-hmm.
200 feet, and a posting to be placed in the newspaper.
In the newspaper, right.
Which was done.
So if I can, because I mentioned this to council 2 meetings ago because a similar topic came up.
Correct.
So state law requires what David just laid out, and I assume you guys got letters.
Half of us did and half of us didn't.
Okay, well, maybe y'all can follow up after
Actually got
the meeting
that's
about
on the
that.
screen that shows exactly which.
Oh, yeah, look at the, so it's a 200-foot radius from the
Correct.
property, so.
That is state law,
So
correct.
that may be why.
So everything inside the yellow line received notices. So that would include the HOA lot in the cul-de-sac.
Actually, because I'm about 20 feet off the yellow line, I did not receive.
Yeah, so, now, my question would be, why do we sometimes put out signs and other times not? My recommendation to staff, which I'm just a P&Z commissioner, I can't direct staff, but my recommendation would be that the policy be that we always put a sign on the subject property, because sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't. I live on Skyline, so I drive this all the time, so
Right.
I didn't even think about it until you said it, because I knew it was coming. Okay? The other policy suggestion I made, when council mentioned this relative to the other townhome development that's kind of on the table a couple weeks ago, was to do some social media posting, because state law is living in the minds of where our legislature is at right now, which is that people are looking at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram every day.
Correct.
They don't do that anymore. So I
Facebook.
totally understand your frustration, and I'm sorry that you feel like that this is kind of how it reached you.
Well,
so-
once again, not speaking as the villas, but the majority thinks this was done in the dead of the night with very little posting and very little.
And that's
outreach.
always the issue, right? Is that's what folks tend to, that's their first thought when they don't hear anything. The first thought was there must be a reason why, right? So we can always get better at communication. I totally sympathize with your position on that.
I personally, and I'm a contractor, I've never seen a changing of zoning request not posted with a bandit or so, such sign on the property. It just seems very strange.
Sure.
Even though it's not exactly state law, it's kind of the norm. So it just seems odd that, and I don't want it, the word greed was used. I don't want to use that word, but I've heard that a lot today from my neighbors and my friends. So nobody on the board has an answer to, you had a great answer, but why was that? I mean, I'm going to have to go back.
I'll put it to you. I'll put it to you like this, Mr. Perkins. I was on council for 4.5 years and sat in that seat for 129 meetings between this building and the old building, and I used to always say, why don't we do more to proactively communicate? Sometimes things happen, sometimes they don't. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I agree. I don't agree with necessarily the greed characterization, because I'm a big property rights
I did
guy.
not use that word.
No, I know. We're all talking in a group conversation, but I
Absolutely.
completely sympathize with the communication situation. So hopefully we can continue to with additional feedback. I would encourage you to provide feedback to council as well about that, because those can be accomplished with policy, and I know our staff is interested in providing high-quality service to the residents. It's just a matter of making sure we get the policies in place.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. And I'm sorry to stop you on that one. But
No,
I'm sure you have
no,
more things.
that's.
You just hit one of my pet topics. I mean,
That's all good. So, I have a lot of questions, and I hope to come here and so did about 10 of the residents from Jamie Court to get a lot more answers from the developer. And from where I said, I didn't get a whole lot of answers. I got a lot of maybe, possibly, might happen, but I didn't get concrete answers. And I was looking for concrete answers. That's just the kind of person I am. I'm a contractor, so I answer to people, and I do my own projects, and just like they do, but, I typically work for myself, and different world maybe, but it just seems bizarre to me. So that was really the only question I had for the board. The rest of them are actually for the developer. Now, when he said it was going to be an HOA, and it was basically up to the city whether it was going to be gated or not, that's not exactly true. You can apply to be a gated community, and it's not hard to get done at Trophy Club, like because you've been in that seat before. We're a gated community, so.
You also said people don't like to be in gated communities. I don't know anybody on this street that doesn't like it.
I know we got 2 streets, 22 houses on each street. And once again, I don't speak for anybody but myself, but that's why all 44 of us live here, because it's a gated community.
sure.
And-
So obviously that's obviously a marketing decision, right? Whether you want to market it as
Sure.
gated or not, right?
But
So-
it would be nice to know if it's going to be gated or not.
Maybe if I could clarify, since your question was for Mr. Elbarai, was your intent when you said that it was up to the city, basically was to say that you're open to the suggestion? Because that's how I took it. I guess answer to maybe how would that impact how you would market the homes, one option versus the other, if you don't mind using the mic.
What I'm saying, it's up to the city, and I didn't say nobody likes a gated community. I'm saying that I've done developments where the neighbors don't like to have a gated community coming in to the development, a new gated community. Everybody wants to live in a gated community. Although even Trophy Club has one of the lowest crime rates in the country, I have no problem doing a gated community. I didn't request that because I didn't want to ask for too much, because I perceived asking for a gated community was going to be taken negatively. But for me, for marketing, it is absolutely better to have these gated.
Okay.
That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. I'm just going to answer one of your questions. You said you didn't hear answers to questions. I didn't hear any questions. If you give me questions, I will stand here and answer questions all night long.
I have a list of questions.
All right, I think we'll try to do that in
The lady
as,
before me addressed quite a few of them,
Yeah.
so.
I haven't had a chance to answer.
we'll
Okay,
try.
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll
So-
try to do that in as efficient and productive a way as possible, for sure, so.
So you did answer the question about lighting, which you did a good job with that. Big concern of, big lighting, booming, it comes back to the peaceful enjoyment of my property, which is a law. And, if somebody's booming lights, and people are 10 feet away in their backyards, that's a problem for my friends. I've had a lot of requests for a tree buffer. And so I'm sure we can discuss that. We actually do want to be good neighbors to whoever builds behind us, but we totally disagree from the artist renderings that this will actually blend in with Trophy Club, and it's not what Trophy Club's about. And I've lived in my house, 9 Jamie Court, for 12 years now. That's not what I bought into. I didn't build into, I don't want to see a 42-foot maximum height rooftop. That seems like it's almost an invasion of privacy to my neighbors. Actually, I live on the other side of the street, not so much to me, but to my friends. And that's where we disagree. We'll agree to disagree on that. I heard 2-foot or 2-story, 3-story, and then 42-foot height. Air conditioners, different spots. It changed a couple of times. I'm just a little confused. It just seems like there's more questions than answers at this time. And as far as the trees, the live oak trees on this property, there's actually a city code that you cannot cut down a live oak, period, unless you get an arborist that says it's dying or it's gonna die. And I've dealt with that with the city code enforcement when I had to cut one down that was questionable. So I got an opinion that said, if it falls, it'll hit, blah, blah, blah. And that's been a few years ago. I don't know if that's changed or not. I don't think it has, but maybe it has.
So to that point, I know at that one, anything pertaining to that would happen in a further stage, assuming there was a zoning change here. Once things got into the permitting phase, those things would have to be dealt with.
Totally understand.
So that would be at a staff level, and so we could probably dig into that a little more, but
Right.
there at least is a catch there for where those things would be
Right,
applied.
exactly. But the people exactly on Jamie, Hannah, and Inverness have had to jump through these hoops for years. When, a tree's dying, we have to get a certified arborist out to verify this tree's dying, because you can't cut down that tree in Trophy Club.
Can you add any color to that, Matt? Because this is the first I've heard of it, and a lot of other folks are probably hearing it for the first time too. So maybe we can enlighten everyone.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of.
Okay.
Sure.
So maybe we'll put that to the side. Maybe we'll dig into that a little bit and figure out what the scoop is.
Okay,
there.
it's in our covenants and restrictions that were revised recently, a couple
Okay,
of years
so
ago.
if it's in your CC&Rs, then it's
But
specific to your development.
But it also rolls back into more, I can pull it, and I can provide it to the board. But it alludes that it's actually the city of Trophy Club, not us, that requires that.
Okay, it's a problem. We should definitely, if you can, provide a copy of that for future reference, but I think we're pretty sure that there's not a municipal requirement there, at least in terms of specifically a live oak tree.
Okay.
And
I
for
will
residential.
dig into that
Yeah,
very
let's-
deep,
yeah, I'm
because
interested in that too.
pretty sure that that documentation, whether it was right or wrong, was in there, so. And in closing, I might have said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't like the previous young lady. I do not think the artist renderings match what the City of Trophy Club is all about. There's nothing in the City of Trophy Club other than one or two houses on between here and Tom Thumb, when you go the back way, that are this form of contemporary. And it's just, I think it's gonna hurt our property values in the long run, because that's not gonna match. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. And that's the biggest, one of the biggest worries. But I think we're very early in the planning stages, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And I would just like more firm answers instead of this might be, this might be, this might be, this might be 42 foot, this might be 2-story, this might be 3-story. That's a little vague. So I'd love to hear the developer, and I'll step aside if he wants to answer, give him a little opportunity.
Okay. As far as the townhomes and being stark white and not matching, I don't disagree with you. Right now, the neighbors are looking at the back of the Hampton Inn. So I don't know that the townhomes are really gonna make your view worse, but we just had a conversation a few minutes ago that we have no problem, we can match. And in fact, it's better for us too, to match the colors, textures of the existing area. But there is no overlay historic district here. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. The townhomes that we're building in Roanoke, they sit in the historic district overlay. So they must have a specific look that matches the historic district overlay. There is no overlay here. It doesn't exist. So designing them this way is well within acceptable parameters of what we can design here. However, the reason for these types of meetings is to listen to concerns. For me, as far as designing them with darker colors, darker textures to match more of the homes, that's not a problem. We can do that. That's easy. So these are just what they are. They're artist renderings. They're ideas. Now, as far as answering your questions about 2-story versus 3 stories, 42 feet, the townhomes we're proposing are 2 stories tall. The height of the 2-story is going to be somewhere between 22 to 24 feet. And the reason I say that is because a structural engineer is going to design the floor system, the slab thickness, and the grade of where the slab sits. So I can't honestly say it's going to be 22.6 feet. I can't, because we haven't gotten to structural engineering yet. So when that's designed, they're going to fall in that level. So the rooftop deck, as we discussed, you are standing on top of, right here, the rooftop deck, you're at 22 or 24 feet. You're basically standing on top of the 2nd story. Now there's a 4-foot parapet wall. Parapet wall is basically a screening wall. It goes the perimeter of the rooftop deck. And that hides any, because these are flat roof, you don't have an attic, so we don't have a furnace in the attic. You have what's called a packaged rooftop unit that sits at the top and services, it's the air conditioning and furnace all in one package. That is going to be shielded from public view. That's in the PD. And to do that, the parapet wall has to be taller than the tallest HVAC unit that we have. So if the units that are required for these particular homes are 4.6 feet tall, we have to build a parapet wall to shield that. That's in the PD. As far as if we're standing on the rooftop deck right now, let's say I'm looking towards your homes on Jamie, I cannot stand close to the parapet wall where I can lean over and look down into your homes. We are calculating it such that we are going to screen it where I cannot encroach and go over there and look at your homes. My rooftop deck ends here. So if I'm standing here, I can't possibly see into your homes.
Understandable.
Okay? Screening as far as trees are concerned. We plan to put trees in that. Now, the types of trees that we have, again, this is an artist rendering. But people buying new homes don't want to necessarily look into the backyards of existing owners and vice versa. As far as cutting down trees, your neighborhood, the neighborhood above it, to the left, to the right, every single neighborhood had to cut down trees. So I don't think it's fair for all of us to enjoy the homes that we live in, not thinking what trees had to die or what trees had to be cut down, but now we can't cut down trees. As far as greed is concerned, I want to address that. We don't have to have, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rowe. If I'm not changing the PD, do I need to be here tonight?
No, if you could, in theory, submit plans directly to the town as long as they conformed with zoning, and believe ultimately our responsibility, we may have to approve a site plan, but our ability to modify what's in there would be pretty limited. It'd be all about what we could talk you into, basically.
Mr. Cox, can I put a 4-story building on this property by right today? Or 3 stories? Okay, that would be greed. That would be me making use to the capacity of the property by right. But I'm here proposing something that I think is a much better alternative. Now, yes, maybe the colors don't match. Maybe we're trying to get over the whole rooftop deck. I'm not looking for views. Nobody wants to look at the back of the Hampton Inn. Whoever's living just there to the north of the property is looking at the back of the Hampton Inn today from your backyard.
We're looking at trees.
Oh, you're looking at trees. Okay, well then that buffer area, that's what that buffer area is for. We don't have to clear that. So if we look at this buffer area here, a lot of the trees are sitting here already on this corner.
Actually, the trees would be down this way.
Right. We also,
So they would have to be cleared, correct?
some will have, yeah, of course, to have a street, yeah, of course, those trees
No,
will
they
have
would
to
be on
cleared.
this side of the street. They would actually not be in the street. They're actually this side of the street.
We have not done a tree survey, so I cannot tell you what trees are going to be cleared or not cleared. That's going to be a tree survey, and the tree mitigation plan, tree protection plan, I believe you're correct to that. If you do cut down a tree that is protected by ordinance, you have to replace it with equal caliber trees. Sorry?
I don't know that there's necessarily a requirement species for species, but that's pretty far down into the weeds from what we're trying to address tonight. But there are tree mitigation ordinances, obviously, that do enforce some type of mitigation. That's why it's called tree mitigation. One of the things that I think is important as we figure out how to move forward with what we're going to do with this is I would like for the PD to say something about that in specificity to whatever degree staff thinks we can actually put into a PD, and we can talk about that with the applicant, obviously, too. So I think everyone agrees we want to have a lot of nice trees.
I mean, that's what we want too for the people that are buying these homes. And nobody wants to look at the back of an existing neighbor. Everybody wants some sort of privacy or the feeling of privacy. So the trees are helpful for you as well as for us. Now, that wouldn't be the case if I was doing a commercial property. If I was doing a commercial property, nobody on a commercial property is going to care about privacy.
Correct.
So if we're talking about privacy, and if you're thinking it doesn't matter what I say today, for me to be able to sell these homes, I need to think about the marketability of the homes. So it behooves me to create some sort of privacy for these new residents. Whereas if I'm,
Put it in the plans or anything. Everything's just so vague. You could have put, here's the great trees. So we come from South Lake originally, and they were gonna do a huge Kroger development on Dove and 114.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So they were gonna do a huge development on Dove and 114, and South Lake posted it, just so you know. So out of like 100 homes possible, there was about 150 people deep. If it was posted, I bet 23 out of 23 would have come. Well, 22 out of 23 because one's out of the country, right? Correct. So your plans that you're showing us are so vague. The professional presentation that we've seen before of bigger companies, I get it, you're kind of new. They had, here's the light fixtures we're going to use. Here's how it's going to go. Here's how many lumens it is. Here's how many lumens you can see. It's shielded. here's exact picture of how the roof deck is gonna look, instead of approximately, maybe kinda, sort of. Here's where the sidewalks are. Here's what we're gonna do to mediate the traffic who's already going the wrong way when they come out of HG. They already go, 100 feet the wrong way to hit the side road there. You guys see that all day, probably. So I guess our displeasure is we don't know what questions to ask, because every question we ask, you say like, yeah, we could probably do that. But if it's not in real plans to see and real documents, then you could do whatever the heck you want. And I don't know who's gonna pay $1.2 million to look at the Hampton Inn. So you gotta rethink this whole strategy, put together a bigger, better proposal with a lot of details, answer all their great questions they ask. Maybe get with us first, and then we'll say yeah or no. Because I don't think any of us want a 4-story hotel with like rowdy people, right? We don't want that. We want something nice.
Once again, we want to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
We're not here to
But we
argue.
want to know what we're
We wanna know
actually
what we're getting into.
getting. Yeah,
And that's fair. I mean, any developer.
yeah. And you know what? Like you keep mentioning, hey, Roanoke, Roanoke. We're not Roanoke. We're Trophy Club.
I know.
And we don't want to be Roanoke.
I lived in Roanoke, now I'm here.
Exactly.
We don't want to be Trophy Club.
Right.
We don't live in Trophy Club. That's why we're,
Yeah.
Roanoke. That's why we're here.
Perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
so we just want more, we're so passionate about it, right, because we live there, we're affected, you're not. We want to see what it's really going to look like before we can make a decision to say yes or no. South Lake, great example, South Lake, those like, you're going to put a gas station there, there's going to be traffic everywhere, the people already did traffic analysis, and that was that was not only a resounding no from us. When the city council and the zoning department really heard the details in the opposition, they could instantly say yes or no. As it turns out, there's going to be multi-million-dollar homes there now instead. But it was a zoning change, same thing. We just don't know based on what you're presenting today.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeRay. Mr. Perkins, do you have any other comments or questions for the
The
applicant?
last thing that I would want to close with is, once again, we want to be good neighbors. We're not here to say no. We're absolutely not. We just want it to fit in with the neighborhood. We're not Roanoke. Absolutely, we're not Roanoke. We're Trophy Club. This does not fit in with Trophy Club at all. Absolutely. The biggest point that got brought up, and it got brought up to me all day long, is when we said we're going to start making U-turns in front of Jamie. That is a very dangerous section right there, because you come over a hill, the city has ornamental grasses planted. I've had several elderly people almost hit. So we're going to increase that at this point. Now, that's probably a pretty easy fix, get with the city and say, hey, these ornamental grasses are causing a problem, so get rid of it. But all those U-turns and stuff, we spend a fortune on landscaping. Some of those people are going to make a U-turn, and if they make it too wide, they're running over $10,000 worth of landscaping that I have in front of my HOA. It's a problem. So if the city would consider a cut-through straight into your development, that would probably ease a few people's minds very quickly.
I will say, I can't speak for the rest of the commission,
Oh, I know.
nor the council, but I personally absolutely think that the median needs to be broken in some fashion. So I totally agree with you there. That was one of my biggest notes for tonight. Anything else, Mr. Perkins, or?
No, I appreciate
All
the
right.
board's time. Thank
Yes,
y'all.
sir. We appreciate your comments, and Mr. Elbert, I appreciate your willingness to dialogue with everyone.
So I would be happy to provide my personal email if anybody would like to talk in the future. And I can only speak for myself. I'm not speaking for the villas, but a lot of the elderly people depend on me for answers as friends, not as an HOA. And I can ease people's minds when I get concrete answers. Fair enough?
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing portion of this? Yes, sir. You can just state your name and address when you come to the mic, please.
I'll just make one comment. I'm Randy Rutledge, 5 Jamie Court, and I'll just reiterate the fact, the safety concern with the U-turns there. And it's easy to say, well, you've only got 7 residents, and they're only in there 2 to 3 times a day. You've got maintenance on top of that. You've got garbage trucks. You got City of Trophy Club employees reading water meters. You got FedEx. You got UPS. You got USPS. On and on and on and on. So the safety concern's already a problem with HG Supply and the hotel. And then to compound that with additional vehicles, whether they be commercial or residential, is just something I think you need to take into concern. Because at some point in time, it becomes a liability for the city of Trophy Club. Because we have on record that it's a concern now. You've even voiced it as a concern. So just, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Mr.
bet.
Rutledge. All right, and with that, we'll close our public hearing, 8:21 PM. I'm also, before we move on to the action item, which is B in this item, I'm going to call a quick 5-minute recess so everyone can have a quick break. So we're at recess, and we'll be back in 5.
Got a couple new members here, so.
morning, good, how are you?
You're thinking of, what's it called, the one that the agendas were on. I can't think of it now, but it's, this is where all the ordinances and everything go to. It's, what was that thing called? They switched, yeah, they switched, but that's a different, that's the one that just showed the agendas before the meeting. Yeah, there's a way. The store, Laserfish is like the document repository. Yeah.
We get down to this last piece of property.
Jump to, and he's gonna fix it for P&Z. I figured you guys would wanna dig and see what else might be missing. Because we'll have to figure out the process breakdown. Yep. Yeah. Well. Oh, we'll see. Yeah. All right, I think it's been 5. All right. I'd like to go ahead and get us going back again here if everybody is amenable to that. Commissioners certainly are. They're all in their seats, ready to roll. All right, if everybody could come to order, it is 8:28 and we have returned from recess. Moving along on item number 1 on our regular session agenda, we're now on to Part B, which is the action item, taking appropriate action including discussion and recommendation regarding a request to rezone and establish a planned development for up to 7 townhome lots along with 1 open space lot and 1 common private street lot on property described as Lot 3R2, Block A, Trophywood Business Center, in addition to the Town of Trophy Club, located at 401 Trophywood Drive in the Town of Trophy Club, Tarrant County, Texas, currently zoned PD 25 planned development. So, Commissioners, any discussion? The floor is open. Any questions you have of applicant or staff? Now is the time. I made a list of several things based on the discussion we just had. But if anyone else has anything, I'm happy to turn the floor over to y'all.
I think your list is probably the same as ours.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking strategically here on this. First of all, I appreciate all the public input that we got. I think that the validity of a commercial development in this space that would not be offensive to the homeowners, as the applicant described, is probably difficult to meet. If you think about something that was small enough to not impose on the nearby neighbors, then it wouldn't be big enough to justify the investment, whereas obviously a 4-story hotel would, but then to the point that was made earlier, now you're kind of sticking it to the neighbors. You got hotel stacked on top of hotel right in people's backyards. So in terms of land use and townhomes here, I'm pretty comfortable with it. It's all just going to come down to the details, I think is where I'm looking at on this. A lot of times at P&Z we see something and we just vote and we move on. We've got a lot of things here. Our applicant has been open to a lot of recommendations about ways we could make the PD more detailed. I think there's a lot of areas that we could add detail here, and so I'm going to name off a few of them. And Matt, if you wouldn't mind taking notes for me here, and then when I'm done off my list, if I forgot anything, gentlemen, jump in. And that way we can go from there. In terms of within the PD document, Text on lighting and shielding of lighting is one thing. Definitions, limitations, or regulations on rooftop structures is another. Having a traditionally composed site concept plan as a part of the PD is another one. Delving into the specifics of the types of trees and/or quantity or whatever is permissible and amenable relative to what we're able to do in a PD there. In the buffer areas and open space is something I'd like to see additional detail added. I'd like to see additional detail on sidewalks. Obviously, they'd be shown in a site concept plan, but some text there regulating the width is a good thing. I think we would be wise to consider a way to restate the 3-story max, 42 feet, to say 2-story max plus whatever we're going to call rooftop patio and call that 42 feet. I think that would go a long way in illustrating to people what the product actually is going to be. The recommendation of continuing the same style of fencing along Trophywood Drive, it sounded like everyone in the room thought that was a good idea. So I personally would like to see that added to the PD. Gated or not, I would think that needs to be addressed. I think it might be helpful if the representative renderings included some type of view of what the rooftop might look like from, a part above, oblique, And then the question of being able to reasonably match color and texture and the character of the surrounding developments. Obviously, there's differences in material, but if there's a way that the PD could include a palette of available colors and textures or combos, I think that would be really wise to have in there. So those are the things I have that I think would be appropriate in the PD. I have a couple other things that I'm not sure if they're appropriate in the PD, but they definitely, I think, need to be dealt with between staff and the applicant. One being the question of the water line and moving the easement to, accommodate for that. Obviously, the timing of that, based on what Mr. Rose said, there may be some advantage there if they're already going to replace a line from 12 to 16 inches. If there are any other potential utility easement gotchas on lot number 7, it'd be good to explore those from a staff perspective, maybe consult with someone at the MUD to make sure that there's not any unknowns or unforeseen circumstances that might arise from that. And that concludes my list. Commissioners, do you guys have anything else that I forgot?
Traffic.
Oh, right, yeah, of course, the median has to be opened. I mean, that's just me saying has to. Who am I to say has to? But,
Need to look at that.
yeah. That one was so important, I put it in its own section, and then I didn't get down there to my notes. So clearly, I think that's something that seems like everyone is in agreement on. Are there any others, anything else that you guys can think of?
I had one, just to add to your point relative to the rooftop. I keep wargaming in my head the roof deck and then the four-foot parapet wall. We might, just out of consideration that the layout of the equipment, I know we're talking about one rooftop unit, one package unit that would serve each one of we might ought to be amenable to perhaps raising the parapet wall 2 feet. It looks like nothing from the outside. 2 feet won't be offensive to anybody, but then this way you can assure that for anybody of average height, we could mitigate the privacy issue, looking over into the neighbors.
You can come forward just so we can get you on the recording on that.
Just a suggestion in line.
No,
with
it's perfect.
Mr.
And
Rowe.
there may be 2 package units per townhome,
Per
depending on the
townhome,
size.
because of the square footage.
Right, but we could put in the PD, there's a line of sight, there's, the HVAC units may not be visible from the street. We could also have that a 5'8", or I don't know if we can do this, there's a way to do it, that there's no direct line of sight into,
That's my
the
point. I
adjacent
use
properties,
6
yeah.
foot as an arbitrary
So-
number, but
Again, the package units, some are 4, some are 3, some are 2, so it's going to be that the parapet wall has to match all the way across. So we have a 4,000 square foot townhome, it's gonna need probably a couple of 5-ton units, or, a 4 or 5, so that's gonna be pretty tall, so I think that's easy to do.
okay,
That's not a
and
problem.
just the layout, there may be a more efficient layout that may not even shield, it may not even preclude somebody from walking all the way to the edge and peering over. But I think if we raise the height of the wall, we would be.
Well, but there's, basically think of 2 walls. There's a perimeter wall, and then on the rooftop deck, there's
There's a
another
wall screening the
fence,
equipment.
which,
Right.
as a homeowner, you're not looking at the HVAC, you're not having a
Right.
barbecue,
Right.
you're sitting outside looking at your HVAC equipment.
Right.
So that's covered too, and that's the fence, that would basically be like an access area, like an attic door, to walk in and service it for
Yeah, just
changing
something,
the filter, so on.
something to think about, just to add to that list.
Thanks. Anything else anyone has in their notes or that they'd like to add? Yes, sir, Mr. Jablonski.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss a little bit more about the number of units.
Okay.
I'm not a developer, and so I don't know what density is proper for that size of a plot. And I just think it needs further discussion.
One thing I'll add to that is that invariably, and I think I said this at our last meeting, and it was a completely different case, but the neighbors never like density, right? And so it's always a balance between what's appropriate, what everyone's goals are. So yeah, I'm curious as well as how do you arrive at 7 versus, Mr. Rose had mentioned 6, and I think someone else might have said 6 as well. Like, is there a methodology that you're following there?
It's economics.
Well,
To
clearly.
be honest, it's economics. If you do 6, it kills the economics. It's literally not, we're not making $7 million just because it's a $7 million home. The cost of these things is horrendous. So this is maybe a 20% total return on this thing, including the land cost and the infrastructure and this and that. So the 7 is necessary. Now, density-wise, we are about 7,500 square feet. We are at 7,500 square feet. We're actually, we did the density calculations earlier. We're about 500 square feet off from the villas. So the villas we're at 1 unit, I think, per acre. We're at 7 units per acre. The villas are about 6 units per acre. So we're not far off. The villas are single-family detached. We're single-family attached. So for an attached, we're very low density, very, very low density for townhomes. To do 6, it becomes a very challenging deal to meet the economics for this project, especially if now we're talking about moving water lines, potentially turning the street a little bit so we can save some trees, potentially adding more trees. It's an economics. That's where the 7 came from. It's to be able to put the most number of units at a good square footage in this area. That's where the 7's coming from. I'm just being completely honest. There's no need to beat around the bush. It's the economics. Economics for the townhomes. There's better economics for commercial and other stuff, but for townhomes, we need to do about 7 units. We tried to do 8, but we couldn't. It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't fit.
No. Thank you, sir. Real quick, Wade, should one of those doors be open back there? Okay, I don't remember. I know at one point that was a big urban legend. I don't know if it still is or not, I don't want to get anybody all riled up about secret meetings, I will also add, we did have one resident email the board who was not supportive of the rezoning, primarily the density but mostly due to the aesthetics. So to try to bring us to some action here tonight, having been through this enough times, I would say that I prefer I don't prefer when P&Z approves an application, but with a bunch of conditions. And, we just mentioned about 12 or 13 bullet points. I think that's an inefficient process because then it's out of our hands. We don't really get to even revisit what it was that we have in our mind right now as things that we think might be valuable to have in the zoning document, right? So in order to move us closer to a goal, what I would actually like to see us do is give the applicant and staff a chance to work together and come back with some of the things that we've discussed tonight. And procedurally, I think the most efficient way to do that is actually to make a motion to postpone action on the item until the next regular meeting. If we do that, then basically that allows a future date, and that allows you guys to do your work. So that's my motion on the floor, and I'll get a second if I can. Thank you. Okay, so second from Commissioner Biggs. I'll speak to that. The reason is I'm not in a huge hurry, but I think we have something here that I kind of like it. I definitely like contemporary stuff and modern designs, and I like even more than that the willingness to adjust some of the more I don't want to say superficial, but some of the more detailed, some of the things that don't impact the economic portion of the development, right? I appreciate the openness to change, but I want to have a good, solid zoning document that we can approve before we send it to council, because what will happen at council is a repeat of this process. And so the cleaner this document is when it leaves planning and zoning, I think the better off we are as a town. So for that reason, that's why I'm making a motion to postpone action and do that. So we can certainly, and motion's on the floor so folks can discuss as needed. Yes, Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Chairman, I fully support the motion, and I think we've had some very good feedback and dialogue with what's been proposed. I personally think it's a good place for townhomes, much more so than a 4-story office building or hotel would be, with parking and much more of the property developed. And I think what your motion contains makes a lot of sense, so I'm very supportive of that.
Thank you.
One additional comment, I would encourage the applicant to spend a little bit of time during this period with those homeowners. They seem reasonable, and if they're on your side, it really helps you out a lot. It helps them out too. They just didn't understand. In more detail is probably better in this situation, because I think you'll find everyone, as they said, is not opposed to townhomes on that site. It's probably a better use. However, getting there, it needs to be some communication and some clarity.
Right. May I?
Absolutely.
So one of the owners at 20 Jamie Drive, she, I don't know if she's still here, she's an elderly woman, she kind of got into tears that she and her husband planted a couple of live oaks and the street would kind of take them out. So I came here with the pretty much confidence that this is going to pass, because I know this is way better than the alternative that we have by right. Tabling it is going to not necessarily what we need for us, because we've been going through this for about 4 months now until we got to this point. So tabling it pushes us another month into Christmas, and I don't know that we're going to be back here asking for the same thing. I'm going to talk to the owner, because this is not my property, so I don't have the final say. I would like to say, yes, this is, actually, I like this. I like tabling it and being able to address the property owners and working with them and saying, okay, let's move this street, let's plant more trees and this and that. But it's because it's not my property, I cannot promise that I'm going to convince the owner to come back. He might sell it. I have no idea what he's going to do. So is there any way that you gentlemen could consider the first alternative? Passing it with conditions. or I don't know if there's a pseudo way of doing this without having to hold another P&Z meeting. Passing it or preliminarily passing it, as long as I and staff work together to make all the changes that were of concern here. Again, I'm just talking openly because if this was my land, hey, fine, 1 more month isn't gonna hurt me. Just that the owner's been beating me on the head to get this done. He's already got a for sale sign if you see it on the thing.
Oh, yeah, drive by every day.
You see it. So if it sells, I'm out.
Well, yeah, that's obviously a risk that you're having to stare down right now. I'll say, as somebody with extreme familiarity with the process and extreme familiarity with the folks that are gonna hear it at council, what we're offering right now is the smoothest path. You have my personal assurance that this is the smoothest path to the best possible development if, in fact, the owner doesn't get in a hurry. Because Trophy Club has no need to get in a hurry.
No.
But we do want to do the right thing.
Right.
You know, so.
Right.
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% convinced that doing it this way is the smoothest path.
Okay, so we will have, when is the next P&Z? Do you guys know?
We have a regular meeting. That's part of the interesting thing about the motion I made. By Robert's Rules of Order, if you make a motion to postpone, it has to be a specific date, and there have to be regular meetings, and we have those. They're on the first Thursday of every month.
I won't be here. I am going to be in Egypt visiting a dying aunt.
Well, we can always reschedule.
It'll have to be in January, yeah.
As long as the intent of the motion is meant, there's no one's gonna,
Okay.
But that's kind of how it works, basically.
Actually, the first Thursday I'll be here. I leave Friday, so
That-
I think we should be okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to work that out with staff, but I just want to make the point for the record and for the audience that that particular motion is made for the purpose of saying there will be a date, there is an expected date to meet, and that way it doesn't just go off into the ether and never come back.
Right. How does P&Z, how does the commission handle additional residents or the same residents with new comments and new concerns? So that we don't keep doing this every month?
I think that there's always, and the other folks here might have an opinion on that as well, there's always a chance someone comes through with something that no one's thought of yet. But I also think that, what is that, 10, 12, at least 13 items is pretty exhaustive.
Yeah.
And, from all the years of doing this in various capacities, especially receiving them from P&Z on council, it was rare to get more than half a dozen conditions. So I really hope we've shaken this tree as much as we can for everyone's benefit.
I think the residents said everything we're going to say that they're concerned about. So I think it needs to address that in the motion, so those things for the PD. So I think if those things are made, I don't think you'll see 10 people here next meeting.
Okay. So I'll take
Other
this
than just
back.
to learn.
I'll take this back to the landowner. I'm going to advocate that we do this again next month. I feel very confident that we'll get it approved at that time, and I think I can get him to relax for another month.
I certainly appreciate your position, given the situation. Any other comment while the motion's on the floor?
It'd be December 2nd? First Thursday.
Is that right? Okay, how about that? Yeah. So just for clarity's sake, I'll restate that the motion was to postpone action on the item until our next regular meeting. We have a second from Commissioner Biggs. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? There are none. It is 5-0 unanimous. So now moving on, we do have a second item. However, it is related to the replat. So I think what we will do, Matt, on this one is simply just choose to take no action. Should I go ahead and read the item? Because I can't approve this plat because it doesn't conform to the current zoning.
Because of changes in state law related to plats, we would recommend that you.
I'm allowed to do that now?
Deny the.
Deny the plat. Okay,
And
cool.
we'll bring it back in December.
I'm more than happy to follow the state law. So item number 2 is case PP-21-007, the Trophy preliminary plat, which is discussion and recommendation regarding a request for preliminary plat consisting of 7 townhome lots along with 1 open space lot and 1 common private street lot on property described as Lot 3R2, Block A, Trophywood Business Center, in addition to the town of Trophy Club, located at 401 Trophywood Drive in the town of Trophy Club, Tarrant County, Texas, currently zoned PD 25 planned development. I will make a motion to deny the plat. Do I have a second? A motion from Commissioner Rowe, second from Commissioner Stevens. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, none. The plat is denied 5-0, procedurally speaking. And we'll move on to item number 3 from staff, receive updates on previous cases heard by the board and active development in town.
All right, good evening. I'll make it short. Blue 22, they should open either end of this week or next week. We're gonna CO them. They're good to go. And then, just south of, that's that lot 2. I can't remember who the business is, but they're coming in to pay for their permit and get started on the construction of that. So that's that large area out there by the frontage road. So
Okay.
that's really all we've got at the moment.
Great. Any questions for Matt on anything, guys? No? Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
I think we got a so moved from Michael and a second from Reggie. All those in favor? And we are adjourned at 8:52.